Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Up The Poshcast. Sadly, we are again talking about another Peterborough United defeat. This time we talk through the Luton game, which we obviously lost 2-0. We talk about Ferguson's interview afterwards as well, which caused a little bit of frustration among the camp. We discuss Archie Collins and the big news about him not wanting to stay with the club and now being on the transfer list. So we get the opinions of the pod, whether he should be playing, what we should do next. We also preview the Accrington game, which is Tuesday night, and you'll want to stay and listen to Charlie's prediction because it's pretty wild and might not be good news if it does come true. We also want to give a shout out to Steve, who made a very generous donation to the pod this week. We really appreciate it. I was joined for this episode by Ashley, Charlie, and Lods, and the episode itself was brought to you by Prime Vehicle Sales, who joined us in partnership, which we really appreciate it for. They're down in Sawtry, so do get over there. With all that said, all that's left to say is sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Well, that was a disappointing one yesterday. Another defeat to start our season. Charlie, how did you see the game?
Yeah, I saw it the way that I've seen a lot of Posh games over the last 12 months, which was really disappointing. I thought the first half we were okay. I thought it was an average performance, and the fact that everyone was sort of saying it was good probably shows how far we've fallen, because it was just a distinctly mediocre performance in the first half. And then the second half, we just fell apart completely, conceded two horrific goals, the set piece and obviously the absolute howler at the back. And it just looked like Luton really beat us without having to break a sweat. They are clearly not at their best yet. It was a really good opportunity, like with Cardiff last week, to actually go and really take the game and potentially beat one of the newly relegated sides. I don't think there'll be a better time to play Luton than right now. They just don't look like they're quite clicking. But they didn't really have to, because we just gifted them 2 goals effectively. We were completely ineffectual in attack and completely naive at the back. And that all resulted in just leaving the game feeling very deflated and disappointed.
Yeah, I do completely agree with you, Charlie. I think it was Andy Griffin saw at the end of the game yesterday, and I didn't really have much to say. It felt like I looked onto the pitch and the players looked like they were accepting things that we just don't even want to discuss this early on in the season, 2 games in. But I just want to sort of offer a little bit of reflection, and not to say that I'm accepting that we have lost the first 2 games, but at the start of the season when the fixtures came out, if anybody would have said, well, you've lost your first 2 games, I don't think anybody would have been shocked by that. We've played Cardiff and we've played Luton. I think that my concern comes in that I watched Cardiff on Thursday night against Port Vale, and Port Vale were better than Cardiff. And then I didn't watch the game against Wimbledon, the Luton game, but they needed a lucky own goal to beat Wimbledon. So are we basically saying that Port Vale and Wimbledon are probably stronger than us already so early on in the season? Because I think that they were 2 teams that I would have said Posh should be finishing above. I think that's where my concern comes. It's not the fact that we're on no points after 2 games. It's that we just don't look particularly strong at the moment. And the team needs time to bed in, but this all goes back to pre-season and what pre-season's for. We just haven't challenged ourselves particularly well in pre-season, I don't think, and we're chasing our tails 2 games into the season already.
Yeah, it's 2 games in, but it feels like an extension of last season, and I'm just bored. Like, I just want to be excited to watch Peterborough again. Not even so much the results, which are terrible, but I've watched 2 games this season. We've barely created a chance from open play. We've gone from being the entertainers to genuinely one of the most boring and insipid sides to watch in the league. It's like we try and build from the back, but the players don't really have the quality to build from the back. So we just go pass it around the defence, and then, Nevitt messes up and Bilokapic messes up, and there's another goal that we've conceded. And we just didn't lay a glove on them for the second week running, really. It reminded me a bit of the Huddersfield game that we played last season, where they went 2-0 up and just cruised it. And Luton kind of did the same thing. Like you said, Chaz, the first half was okay, I guess. Again, wasn't entertaining. The second half was just rubbish. It's just rubbish. There's no other way to describe it. And I'm bored of watching rubbish. Like, I don't know how we change it, because I don't think the players are good enough. But I've not seen my football team win a match since April. I don't know how many games ago that is. Crawley away was our last win, by the way, in League One. I've seen my football team win 10 of their last 42 games in League One. I mean, extrapolate that out of a season, and we're going down. The only reason we stayed up last season is because we started quite well. It's just tiring and boring, and I just want to feel excited to watch Posh again, and I don't know when the next win's coming. I literally don't have anything that I think, well, that's exciting, that's enthusiastic about. We're 2 games in, and I'm just bracing myself for a miserable season. Like 3 p.m. on a Saturday just isn't exciting anymore.
Yeah, I think I share a lot of your thoughts, John. I have to say, I think after the final whistle went yesterday, there was a lot of negativity around, and I was a bit confused. I don't think anyone was expecting us to get a result out of Cardiff or Luton. And there was definitely positives to take from both games. So I don't think the meltdown was justified as such, but a loss is still deflating. And the way that we lost, like you say, John, it's just a bit of a kick in the teeth. And we watch Posh play, we want to be entertained. And even when we lose, we're like, there's nothing really that's entertaining us on the pitch. I think the positives that we took from the Cardiff game was that we defended quite well. You know, Cardiff didn't really have that many shots. And I think the same went for Luton. I agree with Charlie. I think the first half we probably played a similar way. But the negatives from the Cardiff game, which was Brad was isolated up front by himself, we've taken into the Luton game and done it again. I can't understand why we've played this system now where we've taken the number 10 out. We've got 3 midfielders that are sitting deep. And we've chosen to play both of our wingers so wide. And Luton set up that first half with a back 5. And it was just so easy to defend against. We praised Brad against Cardiff. I've seen a lot of people say that he had a rubbish game against Luton. I think I disagree. I think Brad probably did the best he could. I think he held up the ball well. I think he chased down the ball. He covered a lot of ground. But there was nothing around him to support. I think Keller was probably the only one that got near him, and that was his bursting runs forward, which you would expect the wingers to be cutting inside and supporting him in that way. I can't understand why we've decided to drop the number 10 out of this system. I think the game yesterday was just absolutely crying out for it. And fair play to Luton, they were the better team. That's why they won. And the change that they made at half time was they changed from a back 5 to a back 4, and they coped just as well as they did in the first half. They had an extra man on the pitch, and they outplayed us in the second half, and that's what won in the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Brad, because I actually had a Luton fan message me, and it's always interesting to hear what opposition fans say after a game. And the Luton fan actually spotlighted Brad as the worst player on the pitch and really hammered him for his performance. I don't know whether that was just because he was on the wind-up again or because he was very ineffective. I felt like he was nowhere near as good as he was at Cardiff. I think some of it wasn't his fault. It must be very demoralising to play in that system because we don't really get any bodies around him, as you said, Lods. You know, he wins these headers and they often just end up flicking back into the hands of the goalkeeper or being turned over straight away. But also there is an element of it where it's like we are in the trenches right now, and Brad, I felt yesterday, needed to hold the ball up better. I don't think he really chested the ball down at any point. I don't think he really caused a problem for the Luton centre halves who just looked to cut above. He was, really poor. I felt like some of his decision making was weird. I don't think he moves a lot in the box, which is frustrating. I think when we got into those wide positions and we had a chance for wingers or fullbacks to cross the ball into the box, you look at Jonson Clark-Harris, he always used to make such nuanced movement, towards the front post or towards the back post, just to really shake things up in there. And Brad doesn't really do that. He just sort of stands there behind the defender and waits for the ball to come in so he can react to it. He wasn't particularly proactive yesterday. I'm a big fan of Brad, and I do really think there's a player in there. And I think if we'd had Brad, for example, this season in, the team 2 years ago, we would have been very, very good. But right now, with the demands being placed upon him, he needs to do better than he did yesterday.
I mean, I kind of get it about Brad, and I don't want to issue too much of a case of a defence. He wasn't great, but his role is really difficult at the minute. He's so on his own, and I don't know even if he had a real... Put Clark-Harris up there, for instance, that you mentioned, Chaz. I don't know that he would have looked outstanding yesterday because it must be so difficult playing in this team when you've got wingers of Abraham Oddo's quality supplying you. And I mean, Kean Hayes as well. Hayes is a workhorse. I like the fact that I like his attitude. He always wants on the ball, but at some point he's going to have to start showing more quality in the final third than he is, because at the minute he's just sort of running around a lot, and there's not a lot else really. He's a good dribbler, but if you're great at dribbling, but every time you get near the box you give the ball away when you put a cross in, what's the point in getting there in the first place? Or you've got Oddo, who you might as well play with 10 men. Like, can anyone explain any strength of Abraham Oddo's game at this point? The sooner he's out of this football club, the absolute better. I've watched Posh for a long, long time, and I've not disliked a player as much as I dislike Abraham Oddo, maybe ever. I literally see not one upside to the guy, apart from the fact that sometimes he gets back and defends, and even against Cardiff, he didn't do that properly. So I do have some sympathy for the strikers, really, because they're being supplied by one winger who actively refuses to go one-on-one with a man, just won't take them on. He'll just shirk responsibility and pass it back to his fullback. Or in the other side, you've got Hayes, who will take on a man, but when he does get there, he doesn't really get them any ball. So, like, where are they? Unless they're going to create a chance for themselves off a bit of sublime brilliance, they just don't really have anything going for them. So, as much as I don't think Brad was great, I think there are some mitigating circumstances around him yesterday.
Yeah, you know what? Before the game started yesterday, I had it in my head that I was going to be defending Oddo this weekend. And after the game, I don't even think I can. I'm normally quite defensive of players. I'm normally quite patient. And I do think at times it feels like a bit of a witch hunt against Abraham Oddo on this podcast. But I am losing patience with him now. I think when you come to Peterborough United, you obviously come to develop yourself, but you still need to put the hard work in and, you know, do what's being asked of you. And Darren Ferguson asks his wingers to take on their fullbacks in the final third. And for some reason, Abraham Oddo just isn't doing it anymore. We've seen he's capable of doing it. I thought the back end of last season, I thought he actually looked okay. You know, he's got that trademark nutmeg that he does that seemed to get past the fullbacks a few times, and then he managed to cut it across the box for a tap-in for a striker. But we're just not seeing him get anywhere near it for the first few games in the friendlies this season. I said in the predictions episode that I think he's going to get 10 goals and 10 assists. I'm taking that back already. I can't see him the way he's playing at the moment. It's great that he's keeping possession and he's playing it back to the midfield, but you know, Peterborough United's all about the wingers attacking their fullbacks. I mean, Harry has that stat about Poku being the best dribbler last season and Hayes being the second best dribbler last season in League One. The flip side of that is they're also one of the worst dribblers, and the reason for that is because every time they get the ball, they go on a dribble. The reason Oddo is not talked about in that way is because he doesn't have that same confidence. He gets the ball, he just lays it off. He doesn't turn, he doesn't run at the fullbacks, and I think that's, like you say, John, I think that's one of the main reasons why we just don't look like scoring at the moment.
It is an interesting one with Oddo because I actually didn't think he was too poor in the first half. I thought that it was the second half that we really saw the downturn. And he's still working on that relationship with Harley Mills, isn't he? You see where they make the overlapping runs, and sometimes you think you should have played the pass there. I think, like both John and Lods have mentioned, is that the issue is that I don't think he has the physicality to actually beat a strong right back and a high level League One right back. We've seen that in the last 2 weeks, is that previously last season where he's been strong, it's been against people that he's had that extra burst of pace against. He can muscle his way through them. When you're coming against these strong defenders, he's not got the ability. Hayes yesterday was dancing in and around players, which was fantastic to see, but I think about the time he broke into the box and it felt like he had all the time in the world. And what did he do with that time? He passed it straight to the Luton defender or midfielder. And it just did not feel like the players knew where they were on the pitch. And Max has mentioned it before previously. So you watch other teams and you see the patterns of play. You can see what they're doing. Yesterday, it felt like Hayes was trying to be a one-man band with the ball at his feet, and he wasn't giving it at the right time. He wasn't beating the man. He wasn't then completing the pass. And we've said this, I don't want to bang the drum again, but unless Hayes can find an end product, ultimately it's a case of waiting until Frith is back from this injury. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like it's going to be too much of a long one, but we're just constantly waiting for players to come back from injury at the moment, and that just says everything that you need to say about the players that we've got in the building, is that we're just not good enough currently, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I'll try to bring some positivity, because one area of the pitch that I was quite pleased with yesterday was the midfield. I thought that midfield three of Collins, Donné, O'Brien, Brady and Keller was quite good. I think especially Donné, O'Brien, Brady improved his performance from Cardiff. I thought all three of the midfielders had a bit of a quiet game there. I thought they definitely stamped their authority on it a bit more in this one, especially in the first half. I liked the sort of positioning of sort of Collins as a 6 and then 2/8s of Keller and Donné playing a bit wider. I think that worked, and it meant that a couple of times, if our wingers had been on it, we could really flood the Luton box. There were a couple of times where we had, Brad, Keller, Donné, Collins all in and around the edge of the area waiting for the ball to come in, and then it just didn't get to them. I felt like the midfielders had a better understanding of each other. I don't think it was a glamorous performance by any stretch of the imagination, but it felt like at least they understood their role. And I liked as well that they understood that when Harley Mills came inside, for example, to plug that gap, I think it was better, and they showed a stronger grasp of the system. I feel like they are probably the only positive area of the pitch yesterday, because the rest was an absolute shambles. But I think Collins didn't really look affected by what's happened this week, which was good. And I think, Donné and Keller definitely improved upon their performances.
Yeah, so I've said before, I really like Brandon Keller. I just don't want him to be absolutely blowing after 60 minutes, because he's having to do everybody's running for them. And it felt like that in the first half yesterday, is that he was really taking it upon himself to cover pretty much every inch of the football pitch and be on the edge of our 18-yard box. And then 20 seconds later, when we'd managed to break, he was on the edge of the Luton 18-yard box. And that does concern me with our track record at the moment of injuries. Is he going to wear himself thin and ultimately give himself an injury? That would be an absolute disaster, because although his performances haven't been particularly strong, we've seen in pre-season that we know that he's got it. A player that does need mentioning that I was really disappointed by yesterday, and I've got a message from Harry, so it would be rude not to mention it, is O'Brien Brady. And he said that basically Harry's given O'Brien Brady a 7 on his ratings. I think his average was 5.86. So Harry's massively brought that average up with a 7. He said that he gave him that because he won several presses high up the pitch. But what's come from those presses? It's all well and good winning the ball back, but if he's not using it and utilising the ball properly, then it's sum to nothing. And I think that we've heard all of this. Oh yeah, O'Brien Brady's put on a load of weight and stuff, but he still looks like a little boy on the pitch. It's like he looks big apparently with his top off. The comment was yesterday, well, has he just smashed creatine for 6 weeks and filled himself up with water to make himself look really full? Because when he steps onto a pitch against a side like Cardiff or a side like Luton, he certainly doesn't look like this big player that we have supposedly had for pre-season. So I wasn't impressed by O'Brien Brady. It's an interesting one with Archie Collins. I don't want to sit here and bash him just because he's not signing a new contract. Sorry, but I think that the last season with Archie Collins definitely showed that he needs a player like Ronnie Edwards to assist him and make him a stronger player. And ultimately, it feels like that a lot of the way through the team. And Fergie said in his interview, he doesn't want to say, well, we're missing the Ronnies, we're missing the Harrison Burrows, because we just don't have those players anymore. But ultimately, those players made some of the players that we've had previously. I think back to Hector Cipriano. I think that he was made better by those around him. And I think that Archie Collins is one of those. And we're starting to see it, is that this is a team game, and Archie Collins is the prime example that he needs good players around him. And at the moment, he's struggling because he doesn't have high quality players to help him on the pitch. He can't do it himself.
Yeah, Ferguson said in his interview, didn't he, that he was quite happy with the midfield. And I do think it is one of the positives we could probably take from the game. But I also agree, Ashley, that they're ineffective, aren't they? They didn't change the game. They just did the job that they needed to do, which was stay compact in the middle, don't let much go through them. They did nothing to support the attack, apart from, like I said earlier, Keller's runs, which I think he had one weak foot shot from outside the box, didn't he? And apart from that, he didn't really affect anything in the final third either. One other positive I think I can take from the game, and I don't think many will agree with me, is I do actually think in open play we defended quite well. I don't remember many mistakes in the back line. I thought both the centre backs are really good with their duels. I don't think they let much go through them at all. To be honest with you, there might have been like a lack of concentration. It's like a split second where the strikers got to the ball before Oscar Wallen, for example. It's very similar to last season, I guess, in a way where we had Manny and Wallen and we were praising them for sort of defending well, but we were still managing to lose games. And it was both the goals we conceded are just errors, aren't they? Like one's a set piece error. It's poor from Okabuo, but it's just another set piece goal. It's probably the way we've set up, if anything. Like if you watch the corner go in, there's no man on either post. Oscar Wallen's marking the zone right in the middle of the goal in front of Bilo. Like I'm no expert on defending set pieces, but we've had such an emphasis on it again this summer, and it's like we're watching the same stuff. This time last year, we were saying exactly the same things. And then obviously the other goal it's not anything that we've done wrong defensively. It's literally just our lack of quality in building up from the back. So I have to say, all four defenders, they weren't fantastic, but I don't think they let us down at all. And you've got to think that Luton are one of the best teams in the division. So I think we can take a positive from the back four yesterday in open play.
I don't think I disagree, Lods. And I thought that Okabuo was relatively strong, and I was happy to give him quite a high mark until we conceded the first goal. But we listened and we sat here when we had DMAC on live and we were told, yeah, we're going to be great from defending set pieces. If we'd have conceded 8 less goals from set pieces, we'd have been like 9th in the table and it would have been a completely different season. But we're now 2 games into the season and 33% of the goals that we've conceded, no, 25%, sorry, have been from corners. So if that continues throughout the season, where are we going to be? The basics are that we're doing these tennis ball things and we're not holding on to a player. But if maybe Okabuo had held on to Anderson yesterday, then he probably wouldn't have scored the goal. He's literally had a free run at the header. And I appreciate that this is a lad that's not had the full pre-season with us, so maybe he's not drilled. But how basic is that, not to lose your man? He looked like he lost him before the ball had even come into the back of the net. And then all of a sudden, you've got a free header in the goal. That's just the basics for me. And it feels like, Lord, you picked up, I think it was yesterday, saying that we're playing 2 sort of systems. We've got one man marking a zonal and then the rest are man marking. So I appreciate that last year that worked when we had Manny in the team, because you just said to Manny, just go and find the ball and head it. And no, a lot of the time he would. But if we're going to let people and attackers or opposition players have free headers of the ball, we're going to concede goals again, aren't we? And it's all well and good saying that, well, we put 30 balls into the box and they were Harley Mills balls into the box and we only conceded 2 goals. But actually, I don't think that's a reflection on how good the defending was. I think that that's probably going to be a reflection on how poor the attacking of the corners was, which is clear to see from yesterday, in that I don't think that we won a single header from an attacking corner. I feel for players like Harley Mills, because like John mentioned, he's being exposed again. That's 2 games running now where Otto just simply hasn't helped him at all. I think that Carl Johnson's looked strong on the right-hand side, and is maybe probably the only positive is that actually he does look like he's a good one-on-one defender at the moment. But teams are targeting Harley Mills because they're just acknowledging that Otto just cannot do the basics of supporting his left back, defend well enough. So it's going to be rinse and repeat until something changes tactically, I think.
Yeah, Lods, I largely agreed with your analysis that in open play we've defended okay. We're not giving up loads of chances, or teams aren't really carving us apart because we have a decent amount of numbers back. But 3 of the goals we've conceded this season have just been through sheer stupidity, and that is something that's gone on in this team for a long time. You look at the first goal at Cardiff, we're knocking it around our back line. Oscar Valin takes a heavy touch and bang, free kick, goal. You look at both the goals today. Okabuo, I've actually been quite impressed with him in terms of his defending. I think he looks pretty strong. He's good in the air, but he's a bit of a donkey. For want of a better term, he's a little bit of a donkey. His pass completion ratio is low. If I'm putting you in the team, you have to go and win your headers from set pieces. If you're in that team, that's one of your roles. You're a big lad. You're in to win, be physical, rough people up, win your headers from corners. What happens? He gets bullied, gives a goal up. And then the second goal is just pure stupidity. You've got Okagbue, passes to Nevitt's wrong foot. Nevitt drills one at Bilokapic's wrong foot. And then Bilokapic tries to shift it out and probably does have time just to boot it into the stands. But again, he wants to do that stupid little run up that he does where he always gets tackled by a striker. How many warnings does he need to see? You've got to be quicker, Bilo. And then when he does get dispossessed, he sort of stands there flailing his arms about more than he does at most of the shots that come past him. And it just moans at the defense rather than just trying to dive on the floor and get the ball off the striker. Like, I'm so bored of Bilokapic as well. I said I'm bored about this team, but I'm so bored of Bilokapic. How many more mistakes do you want to make? Like, just get Reyes in. I don't care if he's been rubbish at Cambridge. I just can't watch any more of Bilokapic. And I'm just bored. Like, it's just stupid stuff. Really, we should have conceded 1 goal this season if we were competent. But we're not, because we just gift opposition teams goals. And yesterday was another example of Luton not really having to do a lot to score twice. So I just can't trust this team to keep a clean sheet. And when you've got very little attacking quality and you give out goals like we do, where do we go? What's the formula to get points?
Yeah, I really didn't think Bilo would play yesterday. I really was expecting it to be Reyes. I don't think he's fit for the system at all in terms of the way we want to play out. The amount of like goal kicks and passes that he just kicks straight out for throw-ins is not something we need in this team. I think one of the things that really frustrated me was listening to Matt Bloomfield, the Luton manager's comments after the game, and him saying that, he targeted Bilo knowing that he'd make that error because of previous games. You think about that 5-2 at Wickham, which nearly ended Bilo's Posh career. I think it is time for his Posh career to come to a close. We have advocated for Bilo a lot on this podcast, especially, Ash and Lods has as well to an extent. We've really been supportive of him because there's definitely a player in there. However, it's getting to the point where there being a player in there is not good enough anymore, because he should now be, after the amount of seasons he's played at this club, he should now be at a level where he's consistently performing at a decent standard. He came in as a number 1 goalkeeper. Yes, we took a bit of a punt on him, but he came in as a number 1. We spent a fee on him. And then last season, he played a lot of games as a number 1. He should have improved by now, and he really hasn't improved a lot. I don't think you can really say he's improved at all since we first signed him. If anything, he's just got worse. I don't know. I think it's another position that we've been really unlucky in. Obviously, Alex Bass, I think we were unanimously agreeing that he's going to be a really good goalkeeper for us, and he's out, which we do have to consider. We can't really hammer Darren or Fergie for this one, because I don't think either of them planned for, Bilo to even be anywhere near the squad this season. It didn't help, obviously, that Will Blackmore ended up with COVID. So the goalkeeper position has been tricky, but I agree with you, John. I'm very bored of Bilo. I really wasn't expecting to see him this season. He needs to go. I am getting incredibly frustrated with it. And yes, I actually do put more of the emphasis of that goal on Nevitt, but also Bilo. You've played 3 seasons in League One now. Just put the ball in the stand. As Fergie said in his post-match, nobody has ever scored a goal from the stand.
Yeah, I just want to mention what John said about defenders getting the basics wrong and not being able to complete a pass. Now, something that you coach your players, or should coach your players from a very young age, when they're 7 or 8 years old, is that you figure out what everybody's strong foot is and you make that pass to that strong foot. It's a basic of football. Akagbue plays it onto Nevitt, his right foot. So then he's squandering around trying to make a pass with his left foot. I don't want to, you know where this is going, but it's a basic. And why am I watching adults, professional footballers, not being able to complete a pass? Akagbue wasn't under that much pressure. Ultimately, if you're down apart with your mates, I know what foot my mate uses to pay the ball. So I'm going to pass it to a stronger foot. A, because he can take a good touch. And B, because he then can play the pass correctly. Is that all it needs to be from Akagbue is a pass onto Nevitt's left foot so that he can open himself out, and then he plays the pass to Mills, and then Mills will play it down the line to whoever it is that's further up the line. Nevitt instead is forced ultimately to pass the ball back to Bilo, and then he then fluffs his lines. And there's another basic in this. What don't you do when you're passing the ball back to your goalkeeper? Well, okay, so I think back to probably 10 years ago when I was playing football, and football's moved on from that. You don't pass the ball across your goal. Okay, that's gone now because the way that people play football is that you're constantly doing triangles across the goal and in your box. But when you pass the ball back to your goalie, you don't pass it back between the sticks. Put it either side of the post, or even if I think back to there's a Stoke clip when they had Rory Delap and they were petrified of putting the ball out from a throw-in, is that the goalkeeper basically passed it out from a corner. Nevitt would have probably been better just putting the ball out for a corner yesterday so that everyone could reset and then we had a chance to claim the ball from that. It's just baffling is that Nevitt plays the ball across the goal to Bilo's right foot, he can put it out. And it all comes from one thing, is that we just don't have the quality to play out from the back like we did even last season or the season before that. And that's my frustration, is that I don't see where we're going to be able to bring in the quality. It's difficult, but it's basics of football. And I don't know what we're doing playing Bilo. He's a lovely guy. I love the bloke. His family are fantastic as well. But we're actively now harming his career by playing him. Who is going to take a look at his highlights from the last 2 games that he's played, and then the low lights from last season? Is that people love to make these clips. You've got teams like Luton practically taking the piss by playing him in slow-mo. Who's going to look at that and go, yeah, do you know what? I really want to pay money for this guy. Nobody's going to, are they? Because all you're going to see is a highlight reel of, you're not going to see the 2 great saves that he made at Cardiff. You're going to see the ball going over his head and then him being tackled by a striker. We're not going to get any money for that. We may as well just let him go for a free so that he's not on the wage bill and he frees up this wage cap that we clearly have issues with.
Yeah, like Charlie said, I've always tried to defend Bilo where I can. I don't think there was a single thing he did well yesterday. So naturally, I've got nothing to say. I've got nothing to defend him with. The only thing I would say is that I do think that Nevitt's more at fault for the goal we conceded yesterday than Bilo himself. I think if you watch that slow motion replay from Luton on Twitter, you'll see that Nevitt's under pressure. He's tried to pass it because that's the way that Peterborough United play. And rather than use his weak foot to go to Bilo directly, because you can see where Bilo is, like Ashley said, he's kicked it in between the sticks. And the reason he's done that is because he's taken the time to turn his body and pass it with a strong foot. But Nevitt should have just hooked that straight away with his right foot across to Bilo where Bilo stood. But because he can't get his body right to get it on his strong foot, he's just hit it with a strong foot anyway, which is why it's trickled towards the goal. And then, yeah, obviously Bilo's backpedaling, trying to get it. He's taken a heavy first touch. And to be fair to him, he has tried to clear it, but just not fast enough. I do think that in another world, Bilokapic would have been a great goalkeeper for us, but Fergie's persistence of playing out from the back is harming us now. Like Ashley says, I think the quality we have at the back just isn't good enough to play this way. And it's not going to stop with Bilo. We can get rid of Bilo and get another goalkeeper in. And yeah, we're all impressed with Alex Bass. Are we convinced that the rest of the defenders are going to play the same way? Or someone else is going to make the mistake, aren't they, inevitably? Bilo's the fall guy at the moment, but I honestly think that the end of this era that we're in now, where we seem to just be slumping lower and lower and feeling more and more negative, I think the end will be that we have to just stop playing out from the back, because we don't have the ability to sign quality players that can play that way.
Lords, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and it brings me on to another frustration, because my frustration didn't end at 90 minutes. I then heard Fergie's post-match press conference, and basically the whole thing was, well, I don't have enough quality. It was, he can't obviously go and say my players aren't good enough, but that is what it felt like if you listen to what he said, especially the attacking players. And for me, I was like, yes, we knew this. It's now the 10th of August. We have 2-3 weeks left of the transfer window, and we're waking up to the fact that, oh, we don't have that much quality in this squad. Well, yeah, I could have told you that back in January 2025, that we didn't have enough quality. So if this is your opinion, why were we not more ruthless in the summer? Why was Chris Conclark not transfer listed? Why was Ryan de Havilland not transfer listed? Why was Donny O'Brien Brady not transfer listed? Why didn't we try and clear up the squad more so we had more space to bring players in that might have given us the requisite quality that we need to play Ferguson's style of football? Because I totally agree with you, Lods. Now, at this point, the only way I can see us staying up really is if we play really like horrible backs to the wall, 4-4-2, get in your positions, play it simple, boot it down the channels, get Gustav and Brad on together and have one of them flicking it on, big man, little man, and going old school. Because I don't think we're good enough to play the way Ferguson wants to. And it's like he had the wake-up call 2 games into the season. But I don't know why that wake-up call came 2 games into the season. It should have come last season. We should have been more ruthless. We all said it in the summer when we did our released episode. We basically transfer listed most of the squad, and the club didn't do that. And now it feels like the chickens are coming home to roost. And it's like, well, why didn't you just notice this before? How many more games? Why has it taken 2 more games of Abraham Oddo before you realise, oh, he actually doesn't have the quality? What did you think was going to happen in pre-season? Did you think he was going to turn into Cristiano Ronaldo over a two-month break? What were you expecting to happen? And I'm just a little bit confused about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we've been really, really lucky since this sort of project started, because this is the 3rd year now, isn't it, that we're going into of that sort of 3-year plan that was mentioned, where we were going to be not very good in the first year, better in the second year, and then by the 3rd year we'd be some sort of super team, is what Darren and Fergie stated. Well, we're in the 3rd year now, and we've just got worse every single year of the project. We stumbled into having a good team in the 23-24 season. I mean, the reason we were so good is because of our centre-backs, really, because we had Knight and Ronnie Edwards, who were already at the club, and they ended up sticking around. They could just play through anyone. But now we don't have the quality to sign those kind of players. You know, they're expensive, that type of player. You look at Wickham, for example. They've signed Taylor Allen and Connor Taylor. Those 2 are probably players that can play the way that we'd want them to. You know, that would probably be a very good central defensive partnership for our system. But that is also, you know, £1.5 million worth of player, probably. I think it was about 800k for Connor Taylor. I'd expect that Taylor Allen was the same after the season he had last season. We can't afford that at the moment, it doesn't feel like. So Fergie can moan about a lack of quality in certain areas, and he can say, you know, we need to work with what we've got in the building and we need to improve it. But also, you can't polish a turd. You know, that there is so much wrong with this squad, and so much fundamentally wrong with the players, that it gets to a point where Fergie's position is going to become untenable very quickly, because if he can't improve the players, then what can he do? He's never going to be, I don't think he's ever going to be a manager that wants to or will do that sort of thing that you mentioned, John, about switching to a 4-4-2 and being nasty. I think he did it last season out of, I guess, feeling a bit bad. And I think probably he felt like he owed something to the club last season, and he owed us to keep us in the league. And obviously we had the cup run, which I guess kept him interested a bit. But I don't think he feels like he owes us anything anymore. And he's not going to stick around if he has to manage a system which he hates and that he's not interested in. We need, I think, at least 4 more signings. I'd like to see 2 more attacking players added, whether that be, you know, a more sophisticated number 9 and 1 winger, or 2 wingers. We need to sell some players, and then we need a midfielder, obviously, because I think, imagine Archie Collins got injured now, or we sold Archie Collins now, we would be in an absolute world of pain. So we need another midfielder, and we probably need another centre-back as well, because Wallen and Akagbue put in very mediocre performances yesterday, and we were celebrating them at halftime like they were the best thing ever, because that's what we've come to expect. We just need a factory reset. And yeah, I'm with you, John. I don't understand how we've got to the second game of the season and the people at the club seem to not realise that we needed a complete factory reset this summer. You know, Fergie spoke about the fact that there were too many similarities to last season that he saw. He spoke about that in his interview. And maybe there's a reason for that, because we've got the same number of shit players as we did last season. We've not improved anything. You know, we've brought in very similar quality players in each position. If anything, we've lost quality because our attacking positions have got considerably weaker. Yeah, I don't get it at all.
It's all well and good saying that we need to bring in new players and that they are not good enough. But ultimately, when you're at home, you're meant to have home advantage. And one of those things is the football pitch. Now, I'm not going to blame the fact that the football pitch was crap that we played on yesterday as the reason that we lost. But multiple times during that game, we've played balls down the line, and it was like it was playing on 3G, a dry 3G. They've clipped, Mills has clipped the ball forwards. It's pitched in the turf and then practically popped straight up. Now, I watched the pitch get watered for pretty much 90% of the half. I saw Frankie slip over during the skip challenge that the pitch was that wet. The lino's gone down and tumbled down because it was probably sticky by the time that he got round to it. What's this pitch doing? Is it just draining within seconds? Now, I know that 4 seasons ago, the pitch was incredibly soggy. Are we over draining it? I ultimately don't understand how the pitch can be so wet at half time and then sort of 15 minutes in, it looks bone dry again. Now, yes, it was warm, but you look at all of the top pitches in this league. You look at Cardiff's last week, it was slick for 90 minutes. We can't pass the ball properly and get it moving around the pitch if the pitch isn't the way that we want to play. That's my concern. It's all well and good saying that we need more players in, but if the pitch isn't good to go, that's the one thing that you can have control of before the game's even started. Ultimately, I think that that's something that we need to look at as well.
Well, moving on a little bit from the game, last week the big news was that Archie Collins was not going to sign a new contract with Peterborough United and has therefore been placed onto the transfer list. Obviously, bad news in terms of, I think we'd all like to have kept Collins in an ideal world. But how do we now deal with this situation is another thing that we're going to have to address before the end of the month, you would think. So, Lods, what do you think we should be doing with Archie Collins at this point?
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised that Archie Collins wants to leave. He's been here 2 years. First year he's here, he was probably deemed as underrated because of the players around him, but still was a very, very important part of the team. Last season, obviously, one of the better players, but the players around him were rubbish. But in that time, he's seen all of his teammates from that first season go on to better things. You look at the top of the Championship, you've got Ronnie Edwards, you've got Harrison Burrows, you've got Ephraim Mason-Clark. I don't think Kwame Poku and Hector Cipriano will be relegation fodder in the Championship next season. These are all players that I feel like Archie Collins made look better and probably helped get them these big moves. You talk about Archie Collins as a player, I think he's not glamorous, is he? He's not someone that you can watch a game and go, yeah, he's impacted that game today. But I think he's so important to the way we play. And we're going back to discussing the way we play again, but everything goes through him. He's always the one that's looking for the ball. He's always the one that players look to pass to when they've got the ball and they're under a little bit of pressure. I think he deserves his move. I would have been surprised if he wanted to stay. And I do think that he could probably do a similar job for a team in the Championship. But if we change the way we play, I don't think he will be a big miss for us. If we are going to carry on playing the way we play and we want to do a like-for-like replacement, I think that this is going to be a disaster for us. And as optimistic as I've been saying that we're going to finish mid-table, I think replacing Archie Collins with someone inexperienced in that role and expecting them to do exactly the same thing that Archie Collins does, I think we're going to be a lot closer to the relegation zone than I previously predicted.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Archie Collins' role is so, I think, underappreciated by a lot of people. And I think there's a lot of bitterness now towards Archie Collins. Obviously, there are some people that just, when a player leaves the club, they instantly hate them. And I think that some people have turned on Archie Collins. I actually think, we are going to be in serious trouble when he leaves, regardless of what happens, because I think he represents, the dying embers of actual top League One quality in our squad. He will move to another League One club, I think. I really doubt he'll go to the Championship. I just don't think he'll have that kind of interest. As you mentioned, Lods, he's not glamorous. He is the last one left of that playoff squad. And I don't think we've had significant bids for him. I think Darren would have said if we'd had significant interest in him, in any of the previous transfer windows. And I don't even think so far this transfer window we've turned down massive bids for him or anything. I think he'll be a very good player for another League One club, but I do think the move, regardless of whether we change system or not, is going to be a disaster for us. I think he will end up staying because I think we're going to have a crazy high valuation for him, but I just think Keller, Donny O'Brien, Brady, they could only do the things that they did well yesterday because of Collins sitting behind them and making them look comfortable. Collins won so many headers yesterday, made a lot of challenges. Even last season, looking at his stats, he was in the top, 10, 15% for most things in terms of midfielders in the league, which, considering we were, a bottom 25% team. That is quite impressive. He is a quality operator, and we are going to miss him a lot. And I don't blame him for leaving, because I think he's just watched, as many Posh fans have. He must be just as frustrated as we have to watch something completely capitulate in the last 18 months. It was like he was living in a lovely big house, and then all of a sudden a window went out, and then the walls started to fall down, and now he's just stood in the middle, with a lampshade, and it's like he has been left completely alone. He completely deserves to move on, and he'll only have my best wishes when he does.
Yeah, I don't have any hard feelings towards Collins rejecting the contract either. I think if you look back when he joined Posh, obviously he joined from Exeter, and Exeter were probably in a situation that is pretty similar to where Posh are now in League One. He joined us to get out of League One and go up the table and get to the Championship to further his career. We're now at a stage 3 years later where even the most optimistic ones of us think we'll probably be scrapping to keep our League One safety, which is effectively a sideways step from Exeter. So what reason really does he have to commit his future to the club? I get that they want to build the team around him, but when the players coming in aren't of great quality, the team's not really showing any signs that it's going to move forward. If anything, the good money's probably and is going backwards the way we keep recruiting at the minute. So I don't see there being a project that would excite Archie Collins and a player of his quality. I also think it's very easy to sort of say, oh, Collins looked much better in a good team and now he's being shown to be an average League One player. I think that's incorrect, really. The thing with Collins is what he does is quite understated. He's never going to be a Poku, for instance, who would still look probably quite good in this team because he's a maverick and he'll do things on his own. Collins' strength lies in doing the simple things, getting the ball, very good technically, putting it into another player who can then go forward and putting it in at the right pace, like setting the tempo with the play. At the minute, Collins is distributing stuff just as well as he did before, but he doesn't look such a good player because the player that he's passing into isn't as good. So in that sense, yes, he is reliant on the quality of others around him to make him shine. He's never going to be a match winner. He's quite, like I say, understated is probably how I'd describe him. But what he does is really effective. He's a really good League One player. He's the best player in this squad by a country mile, in my opinion. And if we do lose him, my outlook is even more bleak. My prediction of, I think I said 21st, was done on the basis that Collins was going to stay for the season. If he goes, 23rd, 24th is right on the cards for me. There's just no way that I think we can cope with the loss of Archie Collins with the lack of quality that we already have.
I would like to look at the positives of Archie Collins not signing a new contract. Now, there aren't many, but we've offered him, allegedly, the most that we've ever paid a Peterborough United player. Now, we could relatively confidently say that Boyd was on 10 grand. So that's the benchmark, I think. Archie Collins, we think he's probably on 4 grand a week. So that means that there's 6 grand in our wage cap that we can afford to pay players. That's 2-3 grand a week footballers. Now, 2-3 grand a week footballers will significantly improve this football team. If Archie Collins leaves, then that's 4 grand in the wage cap that's available. That's 2 grand footballers who will probably also improve what we already have in the building. Charlie earlier said that he wanted 4 signings. There you go. Job done. That's the positive for it. So let's now see the money that we've not spent on Archie Collins' massive new outrageous contract that's the most that a Peterborough United player's ever been played. Let's go and spend it on a couple of new players and get some good quality players through the door that can help this team push for 16th place this season.
Well, we have another game to preview because Posh are in action again on Tuesday evening when we travel to Accrington. Stanley, who are they? In the League Cup, against the lesser quality of opposition this time. What are we thinking? How many changes are we making as well? Is there anyone you particularly want to see? I'm going to throw to Ashley first.
I've just started counting on my hand the number of changes that I'd like to see. So I'm going to work through the 11 and anybody can tell me if they disagree. So Reyes needs to start. I'd like to see Dornelli play. I think we're stuffed at the back. I don't really care who plays. Actually, no, I take that back. I'd like to see Mendonca play. I'd like to see him given a chance because I think that he will probably be slightly better than Nevitt. We saw that in pre-season. Mills will have to play because that's what we've got. I think the three in midfield, I would probably drop O'Brien Brady. So I'd like to see Con Clark play. Then I'd like to see Lisby, Lindgren, and Hayes given the minutes, with Brad hopefully given 30 minutes towards the end of the game just to keep his legs in motion. So I think that's probably 5 or 6 changes. I'm not feeling too optimistic about this. I think it's a long journey early on in the season on a Tuesday night. The players are going to travel up probably early morning on the Tuesday, have a nap in a hotel, and then ultimately there's probably going to be 200 Posh fans there. No, there's not going to be a loud away in to support them. I'll be there. I know that, Chaz, you're coming with me. I'm taking Shine and Imogen as well. I think it's going to be a bleak Tuesday, if I'm being completely honest. We looked at how strong Accrington looked last week, even though it was only against Oldham, who have just got promoted. I think that they're going to expose us for everything that we are, and that is ultimately a poor League Two team at the moment. The positives are that hopefully, obviously, Con Clark was on the bench yesterday after the week before, saying that we're probably going to be getting rid of him. Hopefully, the relationship that him and Gustav have, and he can find him and we can score some goals. It's very difficult. We're coming up against League Two opposition in the Carabao Cup, and I'm struggling to be positive about it. That's sort of where we're at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm with you, Ash. I'd like to see quite a few changes. I'd like to see Mendonca play. I think that's a great shout. I think he deserves it after the preseason he's had. I'd probably pair him with Dave. I think he's probably been our best centre-half this season. And I think after the game on Saturday, I did feel for him. And his interview is actually really, really refreshing. I would really suggest going and listening back to David Hagbury's interview, because he takes a lot of accountability. And he says a lot of things that Posh fans have been thinking, which is really nice. I'd play Dave and Mendonca. I don't really care who plays in the rest of the team, to be honest. I'd like to see Lisby play. Hopefully, maybe get some minutes in Lolos, because it feels like we need, as Lods mentioned, that number 10. I'd like to see him at least get a cameo. We haven't seen him yet. That would be a bit exciting. And I also hope we take up, a coach with an extra seat on, and we bring Ben Woods back with us, because I hope that we can make that signing. We need another midfielder. I think he would be a signing that would excite me. He got 9 goals from midfield last season, 6 assists. Those are decent numbers. He's played EFL football. He's got quite a few suitors. I'd like us to make that signing. And I think, if we can go there with a big knapsack and just steal him on Tuesday night, that would be great. But I'm not, as you said, Ash, I'm not confident for the game either. I think it could be a really tough watch again. I think it could be turgid. I think it's going to be a crazy game, very high scoring. I think it will be a great watch for a neutral, but I think for us, it's going to be like, geez, this is how far we've fallen. I think it's going to be another moment of a real reality check.
I think with this Accrington game, it's a real opportunity for us for these players to show that they can play this system and can comfortably beat teams that are weaker than us. You'd assume that Accrington are weaker than us. I haven't done any research. I know we want to sign Ben Woods, but looking at the friendlies, maybe they will compete with us. But I think we should be going into this with the view of playing a relatively strong team and looking to win comfortably. So with that in mind, I don't think I would risk playing Mendonca. I do like Mendonca. I do think he's got a lot of potential, but I think we should probably play the same centre-backs we have been playing. I do agree that the keeper and the right back could change, but that's more on them rather than the players they're replacing. And I do want to see Chris Con Clark. I think the argument I would make is probably to drop Archie Collins, because we need to get used to him not being around. And then I also would play Gustav as well. But apart from that, I would agree with what you've both said there with the rest of the squad. And I do think that they will be a lot better playing against Accrington than they have been against Cardiff and Luton.
Well, this is another game for the Next Level Barbell Prediction Club League. So make sure you get your predictions in for that. 10 of you scored maximum points last week, including our very own Max Stairs, who predicted a 2-0 defeat correctly. We'll see if any of us get it right this time. And we're going to start with you, Ashley. What do you think the score is going to be against Accrington on Tuesday?
I'm going to go with a 2-2 prediction, and I think it's going to be Gustav that gets the first goal. I then think that we'll then go on and we'll win on penalties, and Reyes will be the star of the show. That's about as positive as I can be, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's going to be... I don't think it's going to be entertaining. I can't remember which one of you said it's going to be a high-scoring game. I actually think it's going to be very low-scoring, but I have got Posh to win. I'm going to go Posh 1-0. and I'm going to go Cairo Lisby to get his first goal for the club.
I'm going for Accrington 0, Posh 4. Call me crazy, I don't care. When we played in the Championship in 2009, 2010, we were diabolical, but we had Wickham in the cup and we beat them 4-0, and that is the only piece of evidence I'm using for my thought process in this one. And for my first goal scorer, I do think Gustav will start, so I'm going to go for him to get the first goal.
Well, when we played in the Championship last time, we got beat 4-0 by Plymouth Argyle in the EFL Cup first round. And I'm going to go for a 5-1 Posh loss on Tuesday night. I am absolutely so nervous for this game. I just think that we've got no chance. I think it's going to be an absolute mess. I really do. It's going to be... I'm slightly excited for the head loss that's going to follow if my prediction comes true, but also I just really have no confidence. I think it's going to be a decently strong Posh side and we are going to get hammered. I'm just I have an instinct.
Well, bear in mind, Charlie went into this season as one of the more positive hosts on this podcast. That says which direction this season's been going so far. Here's a list of all the predictions from the hosts for the Accrington games. Hopefully no one quite as wild as Charlie's own prediction there. And with that, I think we're there. I think we're through the episode. I don't think there's anything else to wrap up. Any other comments from you boys?
Not that are going to be relevant when this comes out on the Monday, just that me and Lods are heading to watch the Posh women in their last pre-season game against Birmingham City under 21. So fingers crossed. I tweeted this morning, we can have some positivity. We'll see lots of goals and we'll enjoy watching Peterborough United again this afternoon.
Yeah, let's hope there's at least one Peterborough United win this weekend. Up the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
Up the
Up the
Poshcast.
Poshcast.
I haven't done a subscribe or YouTube comment shout. Should I do that again?